Okay, so we're about to start, but let's roll the intro first. Which I caught you unaware. Okay, so we are live. First, let me welcome everyone who is watching the replay, because I know that after this we are going to put up the video and you'll be watching the replays. Welcome. I'd like to invite you to like the I'd like to invite you to like our pages. If you're on Facebook, like the page. If you're on YouTube, subscribe so that the next time we're doing a live, and we'll do it every Thursday at noon, so that you can get notified. Okay, great. Welcome, welcome, welcome. So the way this will run is when we start to take questions, you type your questions into the comment box. It comes up here, and then we answer the questions. But first, before we dive into the exciting business of answering questions, let me introduce myself. My name is Ladi Dia, and I am, first of all, a serial career changer. I mean, everybody who knows me knows I've had a very interesting career path, and I'll share more about it as we go on. I'm also a career coach, HR consultant, and a recruiter. I've recruited for 12 years now. And the reason why I'm doing this, my career drive program, but as well as this live, is because I'm convinced, I know for a fact, that it's possible to get work that you want, that you like, that fits your lifestyle, and that is above all fun. Not many people, a lot of people think, oh, I'm constrained to take what I get. That's not true. You can, build the career you want, and that's why I do this. The mission here is to enable as many people as we can reach and touch and help to simplify the job search using structured processes, right? Take away the anxiety, help you focus, go for that job and get it. Okay, enough about me. I'm here with my friend, my partner, Uche. Uche, hear from the horse's mouth.
Hello everyone. My name is Uche, and I have been in HR for 20 years. I'm on this program because I think there are certain aspects of the process of getting a job that people may miss out. Even with you learning several going on training courses on how to do this, sometimes you need to hear from a recruiter what a recruiter is looking for, what we interview for, whether internal or external recruiter, what most of them are thinking when you're speaking, how they receive your resumes, and maybe a little discussion about ATS systems, a few other assessments to get you where you are. I'm happy to support Ladi on this journey. It's very exciting, and I think we have a lot of experience to share together.
Great, and we do, right? On both sides, on looking for a job, being the job seeker, being the recruiter, and being the employer. So come with all your questions. Great. So let's dive in. I think, Uche, if you're logged in live, please type in your question. We'll share it, and then we'll answer it. But let's go on to our very first question. The very first question that I hear it a lot, right? How do you ensure your mind doesn't go blank when you enter the interview room? And here's my answer. One of the biggest things, that shakes people is confidence, right? As an interview. It's one of the reasons a lot of people fail. there simply isn't any enough confidence about what they're about to do or say at the interview. And the answer to that is you need to prepare. A lot of us, okay, so you're not in control of the employer, right? You don't know for a fact that the interview they will come in for interview on this date until you actually get the interview invite. But here's the thing: we've observed enough interviews, even though employers differ, interview tactics differ. But if you take a helicopter view, observe enough interviews, right, to be able to detect a pattern. And so, if you understand the purpose of an interview, purpose of an interview essentially to understand whether you can do the job. That is, do you have the qualifications, the experience, the knowledge to do the job? And then is to determine whether you will do the job, whether you have the interest, the motivation, and then the third thing is whether you will fit in the company. That's the biggest thing. And so typically they are using certain sets of questions, certain techniques. The behavioral technique is very popular. In fact, this has been studied, up to the point where we even know the general sets of questions that come up over and over again. And then, so how do you prepare? What you do is well in advance, you research the company properly, you practice those questions so that the questions that you know for a fact are likely to come up, they are ingrained into you, they come up automatically, and you can then focus your thinking, your processing on the surprise questions. So, my answer, long story short, is preparation. That's the key. And you have to have someone guiding you, right, to show you how to prepare. Yeah? Uche, any
Okay, so
tips?
before you move on, can I just say something alongside that? One of the challenges that you meet, like Gladys had mentioned, based on the timing that people walk into, the timing between when the employer invites you and you go for the interview, at least you would have, by professional standards, you would have at least 48 hours to turn up for any interview. It is important that you go back to the job description that you have seen requesting for this job, because it's within that job description they will ask you questions. Now, it's one thing to research the answers to questions. What I found in my experience when I'm talking to a lot of people is that they tend to tell me theoretically how those questions or how the problems will be solved, rather than using a behavioral, which is what most organizations use, which is you respond to me with your own experience with what I've asked, with a story that outlines the problem, how you solved it, and how you make sure that that kind of problem does not exist again. I'll use a very quick example. When when people are in, you've seen your job description, part of what is required of you is to be able to manage conflict. Now, so lots of people, when they come for the interview and then you ask them a question about, oh, tell me a time you manage a conflict to the ultimate end, or tell me a time you had to deal with the conflict issue. Many, I can assure you, like 70% people describe a conflict that they describe conflict and how to resolve it on a common sense or theory or process basis. But at that point, when I'm asking for the interview, I I'm asking for your own experience with resolving a conflict. So the response should be your answer with a with an experience that you have resolved conflict, what the conflict was, how you resolved it, and what you did to make sure that those kind of issues do not come up again. That is a 3 point answer for. Now, if you've practiced this, if you've practiced, looking at the job description and you've practiced all these competencies that they're requiring, you will have a lot more confidence when you go into the room.
Yeah,
Right?
absolutely, okay, absolutely. I agree. So the secret really to having confidence and to acing an interview is preparation. Prepare,
Yes.
prepare, prepare. Right. Okay, so let's move to the next question. And Uche, this one is for you, right?
How do you answer
How do you answer?
a
Go on,
question
take it.
about why did you leave your previous employer? when your reason for leaving was because of your boss and the way he treated you. Okay, so yes, this is a bit tricky because you would always read in every kind of article about this where they say don't badmouth your old employer and don't badmouth the people you worked with. It's generally in poor taste. Now, but if the reason you were fired, right, or you left was because your boss and the way he treated you, you would have to say, diplomatic language, I prefer to say, I had a conflict of interest with my boss. If the that we had different processes, we had different standards. Those are the words, and it was that it became a situation where you couldn't manage it, and you chose to leave because you would rather seek employment somewhere where your career movement is more outlined, is your mental health is more assured, you're happier at work. You can say that without necessarily naming names, and anyone will take it like that. If you're pressed to give details you'd rather not share, it's the time to say, I'd rather not say more than that.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so let me put in my two pence or my two
Yes.
kobo. Um, yes, I agree. There are situations where even when the answer is not exactly pleasant, you have to find a way to
Mm,
communicate it without casting aspersions, but
mm.
also, while being well transparent. Um, I would look at it from the point of view of interest. So it got to a point where I realized that this and this and this were really important to me. And given the environment I was in, right,
Yeah.
it wasn't going to happen. So have decided to. So you kind of center the answer around your motivations, your
Yes.
needs. That eliminates the need to um, quote and unquote badmouth anybody. I mean, your boss could even have been great, right? But your own needs then changed. So you're in a
Mm.
situation where you realize, okay, I mean, I've been managing it, but I can't take it anymore. I really need so and so and so. So what I'm trying to say is you can express it from your own point of view. How did your needs change and what motivated the job search without having to cast aspersions on anyone? Yeah.
All right.
So yes, that's that. So let's move to the next one. I like this one. Um, so it's I have had sorry, okay. I have had 7 interviews in the last 2 months with no luck. I dress professionally. I answer their questions. I, I answer the questions confidently and without hesitation. I'm qualified and I'm super polite, but nothing. So let me be honest. If you've had 7 interviews in the last 2 months with no luck, right? It's feedback to you that the reason why anyone is conducting an interview is because they are looking for a specific thing. It's simply because you haven't um, been able to convince them that you can do the job, you will do the job, and you will fit. I typically, when I hear this, right, and it's frustrating, it's really frustrating, and it can really negatively impact your confidence. So don't take it as feedback that I'm not good enough. Take it as feedback that I haven't understood the customer's needs enough and I haven't succeeded in connecting and communicating how I bring value, how I'm the one. Is really that, simply that, right? So you need to look at how you're approaching the interviews, preparing for the interviews, and how you are um, interacting on those interviews. If you're lucky, right, you can get feedback. Something that people don't do enough is go back to people who interviewed you and say, okay, so they sent you a rejection. reach out and ask for feedback so that you understand how to improve the process going forward. But from my point of view, it's a go back and get a grip on how am I matching that position and how am I communicating that I'm the right person. It's nobody hires you because you're confident or your prof. All those things go in. But at the end of the day, people will hire the person who they think can do the job. Okay, what do you think?
Yeah, I feel that first off, this person needs to understand that they must have the right qualities on paper to have been
Mm,
shortlisted and into. So it's really that gap, because if you keep getting invited for the interviews and you then don't get a positive, it's that gap of that interview assessment. You've already passed the first hurdle. So maybe what you
okay.
want to look at, like Gladys said, is start to start to connect to people who are on that panel to give you some level of feedback. It could also be, it might not be all entirely you. It might also be a case where one of the positions, maybe your career line is very highly competitive, where you might have to carve out something extra for yourself to just get a little drop in. I mean, so imagine if it
To
was
stand
like,
out. Yeah.
yeah, you have to stand out maybe a little bit more. Something it might not
Okay.
even necessarily be in that career, but something that you have that stands out with you, that is good for the organization in their own major area of operation. And if you do present to there, everybody needs an extra edge. It could be a really competitive career line, say maybe senior accountant, where there are lots of people who have the same kind of qualifications and professional training as you do. And it could also be what it is that you're requesting in remuneration.
Yeah.
And most
Yeah.
organizations, I mean, like if they find most people like tenders or bids, if they find most people are on the same level and one person's price is a bit lower, I mean, economics almost always determines for them that they would also take the cheaper person if it's a role that has enough qualified people. So this could be all the factors. I cannot say it for certain to your this particular situation. So the person who's posing the question would have to get some concrete feedback from some of
Feedback.
the
Yeah.
yeah they're interviewed
Yeah.
with.
Absolutely. I also, I mean, as we go forward to the next question, I just want to reiterate, right, that you must look at, the interview from the eyes of the employer, not from your eyes. They're
Yes.
trying to solve a problem, or is they have something. They're hiring because they have an objective. If you step back and look at your whole, application process and your interview process from that perspective, you will be able to connect more, right? So remember, they're looking for someone who can do the job, that is, has the right skills and capability to do the job. So you have the knowledge, experience, accomplishments, and are you open to learning? They're looking for someone who will do the job. They're interested in the position, in the company, and in the industry. So they're checking your energy levels, your compensation expectations, as Uche um, just shared, your career objectives, and your growth. And the biggest one is they're looking for someone who fits, who understands their vision, who is going where they are going, and the things they generally assess around here is communication, values, priorities, your work style, right? Your management style, and then your appearance, your flexibility, etc. If you just, step away from you and look at it as the employer, it really guides how you prepare to stand out. Because as Uche pointed out, this is a fierce competition, right? So you want to stand out. Okay, so I think we can go to the next question. Okay, you're getting all the difficult questions. So
I was
you,
fired from my last job. What should I say at an interview if asked? Now, the what you were fired for would be this is a really difficult situation. Um, for all the people out there who are at the point where they're having conflict at work, whether with the line manager or with the process, and you are to be let go. If you're given the option of being terminated or resigning, I would always advise people, if you have the option to resign, take it, because it's an easier place to negotiate for from your next job. So back to the original question. I was fired from my last job. What would I say at an interview if asked? I would say you own it immediately, because you know what happens? They always do a background check. People do a background check. So it would still come out. It would still come out. So instead of dealing with it at a later state, just deal with it then. I mean, unlike what it was like 10 years ago, it's not the worst place to be fired. The stigma is not as bad as it used to be, you know. People get
Well,
retrained.
unless, sorry to interrupt, unless you were fired for gross misdemeanor, then
Yes,
the
yes, yes,
stigma stays.
yes, yes. Yes, on a, because there are also very many. When somebody writes, "I was fired from my last job," I can almost tell even that there's a lot of sentiment behind that statement. He doesn't say, because there are different levels of firing. Contract has ended,
Mhm,
is ending. Where
mhm,
retrenching is ending. This role is no longer required in our organization. Is ending. This role has moved to South Africa. It is, all of that is almost is at the edge of being fired. So there are different descriptions at which you can tell your. But now, being saying you were fired for gross misconduct, you would have to tell and then speak of what you have done to rehabilitate yourself and how you are different from, because there's always room for people to make mistakes,
mhm.
and then rehabilitate themselves. So it's important that when you're telling that story, you say what you have done to fix it, and what you're going to do to make sure that such incidences do not happen in the past. Again, where we are doing a highly, how do I put it, highly contested roles, it might dip you back, but it might also give you the opportunity to, the person who's meeting with you might genuinely see that these are the steps you have taken and how you have rehabilitated yourself, that kind of thing. So it's the only kind of advice I have for that. But I would say you tell the interviewer, because if you are chosen and there's a background check that is done, that will certainly come back. Because some of those background checks, they allow the manager on the other side to reply anonymously, to which they would say, "Would you ever hire this person again?" And they're like, "No." He was terminated, gross misconduct, blah, 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 and that can constitute a problem. Yeah, so that's my
Mhm,
time.
mhm. Absolutely. I agree. I agree. I also want to just reiterate that generally speaking, right, when you're putting together your resume, making your application, step by step through the process, don't lie. Don't lie. People are tempted to misrepresent. Don't lie. Don't grossly exaggerate. Don't take credit for something for yourself that has been done, with other people. It's important to be transparent. There's a difference between communicating positively, right? Enhancing your profile and telling outright lies. And here's the thing, people, especially in this day and age, people will find out. So, I mean, just resist the urge to lie, no matter how unpleasant the thing is. All right. So before we go on, I would like to. I wasn't paying attention. I would like to acknowledge a few comments. Angela, thank you. Welcome and thank you for joining us. And Enife, hi, Enife. Enife made a couple of comments. I'll just take one. It's we were talking of when we were answering that question around why am I not getting called back, right? And She said, I agree, Ladi, dressing professionally could even become subjective. That could even differ from company to company. Very good point. And then Asuko, hi, welcome. Asuko says he's agreeing with the point about looking at the interview from the eye of the employer, not um, from your own perspective. And yes, to the last question, if you're saying, and I have to pause and say, if Elife says it, you had better believe it. Elife is our collective mentor. Okay, so Elife says, I think that you could volunteer the information even before it is asked. Present it from the perspective of it as a learning experience. Fantastic, fantastic. All right, so let's now go to the next question. And the next question, I believe it's mine. And so let's go. Next question is, how should I follow up on an interview with everything that is currently going on? Hmm. Okay. Well, I think it's expected for you to follow. In fact, towards the end of the interview, when I coach people, right, to do interviews, I said towards the end, you should have built up enough rapport, right? One of the when they say, "Oh, ask a question," even they don't say you should ask, you ask. So, what are the next steps in the process? Get their contact details. So by the time you're following up, it's not, oh, this pesky applicant is this, quality professional who we've met, who we, form the connection with, is, following up to get response. So it doesn't become tedious. You can, if they give volunteer their phone numbers, yes, you can call, or you can send an email. But I always say the way I approach is, by the time you're getting to the end of the interview, you guys have spent time together, you've made connections. You then both discussed, oh, what should the next steps be? I would like to follow up. So the expectation is set. But beyond that, if you form the connection, it then becomes a little more natural. What do you think, Uche?
I totally agree with you. Your very last question is to ask where the process is going. For the most part, it also helps challenge the recruiter to know that they have to give you feedback and close the loop. For many recruiters, especially in-house, because a lot of the interview panels constitute of line managers who are testing for technical fit or expertise. They might not be the one who would be so concerned with feedback, but make sure you identify the person who is authorized to give you a feedback and follow up with that person.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So, Uche, it's your question now.
What does he say?
Uh, it says how. Oh, sorry. Next one.
Did I undersell myself with my salary range? These are like my favorite questions. So,
The money. It's time to talk about the moolah.
yes, time to talk about money. Money is always very interesting. So,
Yes.
there are lots of situations. You see, many organizations know what it is that they would like to pay. Many don't, depending on what the role is. If it's a new role, usually a lot of organizations don't know what the market is paying, because particularly for Nigeria, we don't have standardized salaries where you can just go to Glassdoor and figure out. So it becomes a bit of a challenge. Now, what you want with your salary range has to be for you a combination of a number of things. What is the current trade that the company is paying? You would have to enter the network market to get that information, what the company is paying, what really is good for you. What is your 40 hours a week worth to you? How does it cover your needs? And then what are similar organizations paying? You would have to go combined with that. I'm glad Enife and Asuko are on this, because we were working on something where the client says they want to pay this amount of money. The person's earned this amount of money before he left his last employer, but he wants to earn something that is, I don't know, almost like 300% up as to, from what he was earning. But then, in getting back to him to say, why would you aim so much further than what you were last earning? He explained what I was last earning was not enough for me, was not good for me. That's why I left that employment. So in between, I've been working for myself, and this is the amount of money that I think would sustain me for that period as well. I mean, like month to month, and this is why I'm working for myself. And also, this is what the market is paying this type of position in similar organizations. So again, like before you go for the interview, you need to have done some numbers research and then
What
be
research?
able
Yes.
to be able to defend whatever numbers that you put down. I used to always like advise people that if you're asking for a pay raise, you cannot just ask for a pay raise. You have to have researched what the market is doing. I mean, literally, it is something you have to do to convince your boss or your organization to pay you this amount of money. And right off the bat, as you're coming in as a new interviewee, you're having to have those discussions, and you should be able to defend what numbers that you're bringing to the fore. I always make a joke, like, when they ask you what are your salary expectations, personally I can expect 50 million a month. That's my heart's desire, and I can explain to you why that would make you the most happiest. But when I put market data and I put the company I'm working with, it helps balance me out. But ideally, in an ideal world, I want 50 million 1 month
So would I.
in dollars too.
So would I. 1 billion, in fact.
Yeah. But you
Yeah.
just try and use a few more perspectives for,
Yes.
yeah.
To
So
filter.
as
Yes.
to the understanding, if you know what the market says, then you don't undersell yourself because you have information from what the company can pay or what they paid in the past for similar roles. The
Absolutely.
market is paying in their competition, in their competitor companies, and then what would your salary, what would sustain your own life, and then find the balance. Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You've covered it quite thoroughly. But I just want to add that, your pay is not just the money, right?
Mm,
When, like with everybody, when you're looking at the offer, it's not just the compensation, it's not just the benefits. There are a few other factors. The brand value of the employer, as an example, as in the weight that brings, and people consider this, right? If you can demonstrate that you understand that, the brand value, where you're going, very many factors go into making the decision. Typically, I advise people, when you're asked that question at the interview, my first go to is to deflect it, is to deflect that salary question. It's not that the
mm,
salary is not important, but far more important for you as a professional, especially as a mid to senior level professional, and for the company, is being sure of the fit. Your objective as you are entering into that interview is, I want, as I'm walking away, everybody in that room, or at least the people who make the decision, to, if you find someone, right, that is exactly the answer to the question, then the money discussion, right, changes. Don't you agree? It kind of changes. If someone feels that I have found the secrets, the person who's going to unlock, the future for my organization, the discussion then becomes a little different. So if you come at it from a point of view of value, as I'm saying this, I know that even I, as a recruiter, I've received that. So what do you want to earn? And the candidate says, well, I know you people have a salary range, so I want to fit wherever the role falls in. And I said, okay, all right, so I hear you, but what's your minimum, right?
no,
So
but
sometimes people can push you, right? But as much as possible, drive the conversation to look. There are many things that go into making this decision. I'm aware of the market range is between this and this. However, for me, my big thing, what I want us to come out of, what I would like to come out of from this interview is to be us both to be certain, to be sure, right, that I'm the right fit. And I know I am, that kind of thing. You are going to
Okay.
say with you.
I have a slight deviation from that. If you say approach the interview from the point of
No,
the
the question
of employer, you have to know. Well, this is probably also personal to how I see some of those transactions. So in at that initial interview where you're talking about money, the employer, if you're looking from his eyes, is all dollars and cents. For every value that you think, or every benefit that you're thinking, okay, so they give me full HMO for 6 years, and I have 10 million, and that's supposed
and
to help
holidays
you.
for the
It
children.
is money to them. Every benefit, every value that they give you is monetized in the mind of the employer. When they tell you
Yes,
something like when they tell you something like 20 million is your annual salary and you go home, when you come back, that 20 million is broken down to how much is paid for HMO, how much is the employer going to contribute to your pension, how much it's dollars and cents. You see that whole
yes,
familiarity of you will the value and the piece of the job and what you get from it. It comes slightly later. You know, we're talking about the interview now. As they're looking at you, I'm sorry, as they're looking at you, the interviewee, they are counting every cost in dollars and
true,
cents, what you cost
true,
them. So
true.
you two
But
have
the
to
point
look.
I was making,
Yeah, no,
yes,
no,
but
I
the
know you
point I
said
was
something about the
making
brand.
is the thing of yes, there are and there's a total cost of employment, right?
Yes.
So there's that. But what I'm saying is that even as the employee, even as I'm looking at my total cost of employment, my willingness to pay. So I've already before the interview conversation established. Oh, from here to here is what I'm likely to
Mm.
pay. But when you see the human being in front of you, right? There are people that will be willing to pay much higher,
Higher for
right? Than
in
so
this.
so if you come into that conversation from a value-driven point of view, you're
Mm,
likely to be able to negotiate much better, was the point I was making. But yes, it
okay.
all boils down to money.
It all boils down. No, it also boils. No, the question is, did I undersell myself? So you walk into this. I'm talking to the interviewee now. So you walk into
Hmm.
this session, and then they say, "Oh, we can't give you 1.2 million monthly because you see our organization brand is special. We would be able to, elevate your own career status. There's some employers that sell you on things like that. It's a
And yes,
family,
the total,
we're
yes, the
all
total
friends,
package. Yes.
the total package. It's a family here.
Okay.
We love each other. We do things for one another, and because of that, take 450 instead
No,
of
it's still naira and kobo.
1.2. Eh, So those kind of conversations you have to be able to
Yeah, you have to
manage.
have your eye on it. Mhm.
And because
Yeah,
you
which is
don't really you cannot authenticate all that value to your in the organization, and by then you've taken this and you cannot translate that value that they offered you that you took into a lifestyle or being able to pay your bills. So there's a level of capitalist mind that I hope a few more interviews take into especially at senior positions, when it's not that yet you just need any job. If you have that
mhm.
value, it's for this kind of job. You should be able to, put some dollar and coins. You don't want to get into a job where you know that most likely in the next 2 years you're not going to get a raise. That's the standard for most places. And then what you then get is a lot of resentment for having been so-called conned into this salary or this value
Mm,
system. And then it goes downhill from there.
yeah. Well, okay. So, I mean, I think we've had a very robust conversation around the money. Money always wakes us up, yeah? But just to
You know,
recap,
many people will not be
first,
working if they
do
didn't need the money.
first, do your market research.
Mm.
Know what the pay range is, right? Industry and where you can um, for that specific company. Know what you need, what you're looking for, and be very clear, both in terms of naira and kobo or dollar and cents or pounds and pence, right? But also in terms of other types of value. Then bear in mind that the way you position yourself, right, determines that conversation of not just getting hired, but of what you get paid. Are you a premium candidate or are you just one of the generic ones? And our process, by the way, let me do some marketing. Our process actually shows you exactly how to do that, right? So, I mean, those are some steps that you must, take into consideration as you're having the conversation. Okay, so let's take some feedback. Um, Ruth says, and Ruth, welcome. Thank you for coming. Ruth says, I totally agree with you, but how does one communicate that without sounding desperate? Thank you for that question. And I guess I'd answered it before. So there's a way, right, of positioning, and there are conversation prompts, right, which we tend to share. But if you just think about these things that I have just listed in recapping, right? That's a good way to start. Uche, do you have any feedback for Ruth?
No, I'm just about done.
Okay. All right. So thank you all for participating. We are like we've kind of overshot our time, but please, I crave your indulgence. I'd like to quickly share one quick piece of information with you, and then we're done. Right. So first, I'd like to extend an invitation. And okay, so that's like a brief intro of our 5 day challenge, our LinkedIn challenge that's coming up from 22nd of March. The link is right there um, for you to register. Register, attend. It will help you become much more visible, right? If you if you've been on LinkedIn for a while and you're not getting people to um, getting people to sorry, if you're not getting people to like recruiters reaching out to you, employers reaching out to you, this is the program to attend. We optimize your help you optimize your profile, teach you networking tactics, right? Things you can do on LinkedIn to get noticed and noticed quickly. All right. So that's it. The other thing, oh, I have some more feedback. So, Bimbo, thank you for joining us. And he recapped that money discussion quite well. So, it's clarity of goals, whether it is your salary, financial career, your learning goals. Once you're clear, and I absolutely agree with this, Bimbo, know what you want very clearly, and then you're in a better position to negotiate. Yeah. Thank you so much. And I want to give a shout out to Wale. Wale, thank you for joining us. All right. So, in closing, I'd like you to, I hope you found this useful. And if you have, please, can you give the feedback, spread the word? This happens every week at noon on Thursday. Follow me on LinkedIn. That's my LinkedIn handle up there. And follow Uche also, right, on LinkedIn. Uche, or just do a search, Uche Okodwa. So Ladigia and Uche Okodwa. All right, I will stop here. Thank you so much for attending. The replay for this will be up um, on our various profiles and pages. You can go and look at it. And if you want the sign up link for the free challenge, please reach out to me on any medium or just type in your request on any of the pages you're viewing. Oh my goodness, I almost forgot. Please, 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 can you, because especially for our YouTube channel, we need as many people as possible to like so we can get our customized name. So please like the page if you're on Facebook. If you're watching from YouTube, subscribe to the channel. Thank you very, very much. See you next week.
Bye.
Bye. Yeah.